US Secretary of State Marco Rubio held delegation-level talks with India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, hailed India as one of America's most important strategic allies. Speaking during a press briefing, Rubio called India as among those few countries in the world who can partner with the US on issues of global importance to shape and influence global outcomes.
Secretary of State make his remarks to the media. Sir. Thank you, Ranjit.
But you can have a strategic alliance with countries. But there are only a handful of countries in the world that have the ability to actually do something about these big issues on a global scale. There are only a handful of countries in the world that have both the economic and diplomatic power to be influential on strategic issues from a global perspective. And India is one of them, which is what adds the finishing touches on the importance of this strategic alliance. Is we have a strategic alliance between the United States and India. It's a strategic alliance between two countries that have global influence and the ability to influence global events.
Well, when asked about a possible deal with Iran, Rubio said that some progress has been made in talks with Tehran and more details would come out later in the day. He also reiterated Washington's red line that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon.
There'll be, I believe, maybe more news coming out a little bit later today on this topic, and I'll leave it to the President to make further announcements on it. Suffice it to say that some progress has been made, significant progress, although not final progress has been made. Ultimately, I remind everybody, I think this ties into the second question that was asked with relations to it. What is the goal here? The goal here ultimately, the ultimate goal is that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. Iran can never possess a nuclear weapon. The President has been clear about that. They will never possess a nuclear weapon, certainly not as long as Donald Trump is President of the United States.
Rubio also hailed the Quad as a crucial forum for strengthening cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. Speaking during the briefing, Rubio lauded India's presence in the grouping to influence outcomes in the Indo-Pacific and said that the grouping today is more important than ever.
Another important mechanism and of joint cooperation, and one more example of our strategic relationship between our two countries, because the Quad is a form of alignment between four countries who are not just strategically aligned on a bunch of key issues, but four countries that have the ability to varying degrees to influence global events on these topics of mutual interest.
Well, responding to criticism about the Trump administration's stance towards Quad, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar hailed US President Donald Trump for streamlining Quad during his first term. Jaishankar added that the Indo-Pacific will become a lifeline and the two countries will work closely for cooperation in the region.
The Indo-Pacific is going to become more and more important with the passage of time. We were just talking about energy. It will even become a big energy lifeline. I mean, if you're going to see for example, a much bigger India-US energy trade, or India's energy and general trade with the US, with other countries in the Americas, I can see much more growth, much more trade, much more maritime activity out there. So to me, the work on Quad goes on, and I think 2 days from now you will see us on the podium talking about the Quad.
All right, for more on this, I'm now cutting across to WION's Assistant Editor of Foreign Affairs, Siddhant Sibal, who's joining me. Siddhant, you were there at that press conference. I'll come to the question that you had asked, but before that, let me just come to you regarding strategic partnership. If you count the number of times Marco Rubio mentions strategic partnership with India, it was perhaps 20 or 30 times or even more. There was not one answer where he does not mention that India is a strategic partner and what it means. Give me your take on the key takeaways from all that we heard in that press conference.
Well, for me, the big news was what was not said rather than what was said. He emphasized on strategic several times. I lost the count, just like you. But essentially, when it comes to question on Pakistan, he completely ducked it, saying that their strategic partnership, India and US strategic partnership, is something that is much more important, and countries continue to have their own relationship. But essentially, when it comes to the emphasis, it was on energy, trade, technology. But many many will be asking what will be the big outcome from this visit. Today is day 2 and the Indian External Affairs Minister and the US Secretary of State are still holding talks in the building just next to me at the Hyderabad house. And of course, they will be, of course, as always since morning, discuss global conflicts, Ukraine, West Asia and its global impact.
Siddhant, also regarding Quad, External Affairs Minister mentioned very clearly that there will be something to share in a matter of 2 days. There is renewed interest that is being shown, or perhaps better way to put it would be renewed mentions of Quad coming out. The significance of Quad as of now, what is the US achieving or attempting to achieve here? Anything you've picked up?
Well, possibly we'll get to know on Tuesday as to what is the outcome of the Quad foreign ministers meeting, because many will say, despite the fact that every side has been emphasizing that yes, there are a lot of outcomes and this is a grouping which is here to stay. Many haven't seen any public developments, and many will be asking the big question: when will the summit happen? Last year the summit was expected to happen here in Delhi, but it could not materialize because US President Donald Trump could not travel to India. Will it happen this year is the big question, because that's something that everyone will be looking forward to. But clearly there is no buzz so far. But essentially, overall, there was a significant emphasis by both the Indian side and the American side on the Quad foreign ministers meeting and the fact that it's happening here in Delhi.
Marco Rubio mentioned again that he wants to come back to India. 4 days is not enough to see the beautiful country. He wants to come back and as many number of times as he can. Again mentions that he is hoping that Prime Minister Modi, he hopes to see him in Washington. They had also offered an invite that Prime Minister Modi should be in the White House. None of that has been mentioned from the Indian side. Anything you read into?
Well, that's something that we all have noted, that the fact that, yes, since yesterday, the US Ambassador Sergio Gore has been emphasizing that, yes, that invite has been extended. But the question is that it's time for the US President to come to India rather than the Indian Prime Minister to go to US. Because the fact that the Indian Prime Minister has been to US in February 2025, there is a standing invitation and he has to come to India for the Quad summit level meeting. There was, of course, no mention on that, but we know that the Indian Prime Minister is expected to travel to US in the month of December to Florida for the G20 summit meeting. That is something that is seen as a possibility. But during the press conference, there were heated moments as well in response to a WION question. The US Secretary of State quite worked up, it looked like, when he was asked about question on racism, and ultimately ended up by saying that the fact that there are stupid people everywhere. But clearly, racism is a big worry for Indians and Indian Americans. And we know that the US President has been endorsing comments which, of course, goes not very well against India.
Yeah, the remark wasn't lost on anyone here in India. But let's see, there's a lot of messaging coming in from the US, from the Ambassador to the Secretary of State. Let's wait and watch how this one goes. 2 more days to go. We'll hear on what the Quad outcomes are. Siddhant, it's a hot day. We'll let you go for now. Come back to you for more.